How's it going, everybody? It's me, your boy. For this week's episode of the Everything series, we're going to take a trip back in time, a trip that will land us at one of the biggest legends of all time. For this one, we're going to dive into a feature that was deemed to be so strong, so overpowered, that it had to be removed from survival Minecraft completely. The killer rabbit. Yeah, you heard me right, a rabbit. But it's not just any rabbit. Picture the most overpowered, beefed up thing, and then like double it. This rabbit could literally two-shot you. Thing is insane. Today, our journey begins back in version 14W27A. This was the 32nd snapshot for Java 1.8. Funnily enough, this version actually released on July 2nd, 2014. That's exactly 8 years ago today. Okay, that day line up, chef's kiss, that's absolutely perfect, but I'm actually a little bit wrong here. Our journey with the killer rabbit technically begins on July 1st, 2014. Back then, Holtz, a former Minecraft developer, revealed the killer rabbit. When it was revealed, this was the texture. It's insane. It's literally bleeding, like on its mouth or out of its eyes or something. I have no clue. In this now ancient snapshot, rabbits were added to the game. Back then, look at how big these things were. These things were literal monsters. When it comes to the killer rabbit, this thing was actually in the game right from the start. This thing was added in the first rabbit snapshot. Initially, it looked like this. Aside from the subtle blood dripping out of its mouth, it was almost indistinguishable from the classic white rabbit. Initially, these absurdly gigantic monsters had a natural spawn rate of 1 in 1,000, meaning every 1,000th rabbit that spawned would be a killer rabbit inside of your world. Just like the texture, that spawning mechanic would eventually be changed in snapshot 14W34A. The developers were like off their rocker then. Look at this thing, it's literally dripping blood. This was actually in the game in 1.8 snapshot. It's covered in blood. What has this rabbit done? It's absolutely gigantic, it's covered in blood. It's insane. The texture was sick, but also kind of insane for Minecraft. Apparently Jeb agreed because in 1.8 pre-release 1, the killer rabbit's texture was again changed to this texture right here. Minus the blood, flip the eyes horizontal, and make them red. Fast forward 8 years, I graduate high school, a ton of insane things happen in the world that you would never believe, and we end up here with a killer rabbit, unchanged as ever, basically the same as it was in 1.8 pre-release 1. First added exactly 8 years ago, texture changed 4 times. That brings us up to speed with the killer rabbit. Before we move on to the next segment, I believe the killer rabbit would like to ominously suggest, heavily recommend that you make a quick visit to the like button or things. So, yeah. So I guess if you want to do that classic 5Ws thing, that's like the how. How do we get here with the killer rabbit? Why did we get here? Like, what is even going on with the killer rabbit? After all, this thing is like essentially kind of like a mod or something. I mean, this thing is like literally so weird and so insane. Now, where did they even get this idea from? Well, actually, what if I told you it was all a joke, just some kind of elaborate prank? Would you believe me? Because that's what it is, actually. The killer bunny is a reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, to be specific. In Monty Python, there's a scene with a bunny. They're afraid of the bunny. The bunny is called the Killer Bunny of Carabanog, and right there, that's the reference. It's a bunny that's basically insane. Off the wall, crazy. This isn't the first time this reference has been made in gaming, actually. If you're familiar with some other games like Terraria, there are other references to this thing. I swear RuneScape had like a reference to like a killer rabbit as well. Maybe? Right? I don't know. I don't know. Fact check that if you want. I swear it's a thing though. Like 7-year-old me getting terrified, screaming, crying on the ground because killer rabbit in RuneScape. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a thing. I hope. So it's a reference. That's cool. I like references. Now, in Minecraft, if you were able to find this thing and take it out somehow, is there some kind of big reward? I mean, after all, it's pretty strong. This thing is truly the joke that keeps on giving and giving and giving. If you're able to take this thing out, which has the normal amount of health that a rabbit has, you will get 0 to 1 rabbit hide, 0 to 1 raw rabbit, 1 to 3 XP, and a 10% chance to get a rabbit foot. There are literally no special drops for taking this thing out. Fortunately, this thing only has 3 health total, the same as the normal rabbit. The killer rabbit is, however, hostile to players, foxes, and wolves, and will attack those things on sight. The attack is pretty strong. On normal difficulty, this will deal 8 damage. On hard difficulty, that's 12 damage. I mean, look, I'm not saying this thing is as strong as the Warden, but 8 damage on normal, bump that up to hard difficulty, 12 damage. I mean, look, for reference, on hard difficulty, the Warden's Sonic Boom attack, that thing does 15 damage and has a cooldown. The killer rabbit's attack basically has no cooldown at all. This thing is insane. With such a strong attack, it would definitely be a smart idea to watch out for this thing. Completely avoid it at all costs. So, let's talk about how you find this thing. In survival Minecraft, where is the killer bunny? Well, it's actually nowhere. Doesn't exist. Initially, you had a 1 in 1,000 chance to find a killer rabbit spawning naturally in survival. Later on, in Snapshot 14W28A, that amount was changed from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 2,500. One snapshot later, however, 14W29A, survival spawning was completely removed for the killer rabbit. If this thing could spawn in survival, it would spawn anywhere that rabbits spawn, but fortunately, you don't have to worry about it. It will never spawn. Instead, we resort to commands. If you'd like to get this thing in survival, you're going to need to use this summon command right here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drop this command down in the description so you can just copy and paste it. But this is the command. Summon rabbit, the location you want it summoned, and then the type 99. The type is the important part. Within the game files, the killer rabbit is defined as type 99. Now, when you summon this thing in, it will actually already have a name tag on it right there. There's no way to remove the name tag. If you were to take a killer rabbit and rename it to something else, the name will still be there, and the rabbit, it will still definitely be a killer rabbit. You can tell that it's a killer rabbit by its eyes, horizontal. If you felt like you wanted to put your freshly renamed killer bunny on a lead, great news for you. If you wanted to put the original killer bunny on a lead, well, even more great news. Just like with all other Minecraft mobs, leads work on these things. If you felt like giving your rabbits carrots, so maybe you could have a baby rabbit, great news, your killer bunnies can actually breed. When your killer bunnies breed, every single time, you will get a baby killer bunny with a name tag on it already. So all of that, and probably more, depending on your imagination, is definitely possible. But unfortunately, it's only going to be possible on Java Edition. The killer bunny never actually made it over to Bedrock Edition. The command will not work in the spawn egg, it won't work either. Not that the spawn egg was going to work for the killer bunny anyways. This is the part of the video for the survival test. The killer rabbit. You summon this thing into your world, what happens? Well, initially, this thing is going to jump around unless you summon it in while you're in survival mode. For the most part, the killer rabbit's AI is essentially the same as the normal rabbit AI, until you move within 16 blocks of the thing. As soon as you get within 16 blocks of the killer rabbit, the thing will notice you, will jump over to you, and will attack you. On hard difficulty, which is what I was running it in, it does 12 damage per hit. That's a lot of damage, but admittedly I wasn't geared up. What if we had full diamond? Well, with full diamond armor, the killer rabbit still definitely packs a punch. The attacks just keep on coming and coming and coming too. When it comes to cooldowns, the killer rabbit doesn't really have any. How about the best armor in the game, essentially? Full netherite armor, protection 4 on everything. Killer rabbit, what does it do? Well, actually, no, it's really not that bad. If you had thorns on your armor, the killer bunny is completely immune to it. Thorns has no effect whatsoever on the tiny killer demon. If the killer bunny takes you out, you get this death message right here. Waddles was slain by the killer bunny. Keep in mind that the killer bunny is still a bunny, which means it has 3 health, which means 1 hit from a normal iron sword, and it's gone. If you're playing the game on peaceful mode, the killer rabbit will still exist, it doesn't despawn, but it won't attack you anymore. But it's not just on sight for the player. The killer bunny also does not like wolves, and it does not like foxes either. However, the wolf, the fox, they're both pretty strong, so on its own, typically it seems like those mobs will be able to take out the killer rabbit. If you do have a group, however, or the killer rabbit decides to attack first, then is potentially bad news for those other mobs. I mean, check that out. That thing cleaned it up. In my opinion, the killer rabbit is a pretty cool concept. I mean, I like a good random event that is absolutely terrifying. It keeps you on edge, and it gives you a little bit of thrill, and I like that. But the developers, they did not exactly like that. Specifically, Jeb. Here's an old blog post from November of 2016. In this blog post, we get a little bit of information on the background of the killer rabbit, and actually, what went wrong. I thought the killer bunny was a tired joke, and it's been referenced in so many games, including a game I worked on before Minecraft called Whispers and Akara, where the rabbit was named Big Pointy Teeth. A shameless plug, Jeb. I see you. The bunnies are also just too dangerous. They're basically a random death event. Of course, there are quite a few random death events in Minecraft, like skeleton horsemen who spawn during thunderstorms, but at least you get a weather warning and can stay indoors. I mean, look, I don't want to be that guy or anything like that. Of course, I'm not a developer, not a scientist or anything, but stay indoors to avoid the killer rabbit, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it kind of works for me. And while I'm that guy, I'm just going to go ahead and continue and say that this is a literal horde of killer rabbits that I summoned in. If the killer rabbit had a spawn rate of 1 in 2,500, you would literally never experience so many. Tired joke or not, I think the idea of a random event with this thing is actually pretty cool. Nowadays, a lot has changed since 2016 with better armor and new weapons. With all of the changes that have happened to the game since this thing was initially removed, I think now could be the perfect time to potentially reconsider this thing. Maybe implement it in survival. It's kind of cool. If you're strictly vanilla, it's bad news for the killer bunny, but if you're okay with adding a data pack or 2 to your world, I've found the best data pack for you. This data pack was created by Ninja Snail 1080. Big shout out. This pack re-implements the random killer rabbit spawning. By default, it will have a 1 in 1,000 chance of spawning, just like old times. But this data pack doesn't actually stop there. It does something else that I think is really, really interesting. So check this out. We have a rabbit. Lightning hits the rabbit, unfortunately. And then all of a sudden, a killer rabbit is spawned in place of it. This is like the villagers turning to witch mechanic. It's so cool. Killer rabbit spawns into the game. It has a resistance for a little while, so it doesn't, like take damage and go away right away. And then killer bunny inside of the world. That is so cool. Look, if the devs hate the idea of random death events happening, then what about this one right there? I mean, lightning is literally bad. It's a warning. And, I mean, look, if the devs are okay with literal person being turned into a witch and then burning too, no resistance, so no guarantee on survival or anything like that. I mean, come on. It's a literal rabbit. With the addition of the bundle hopefully coming soon, and seeing as this thing is crafted from literal rabbit hide, it might be the perfect time to reconsider the killer bunny. If the killer bunny was implemented into survival, maybe a custom drop. What could that drop be? Well, maybe a potion of luck. Lightning strikes the rabbit, you take the rabbit out, and then you get a potion of luck. You can drink the potion and have luck for a little while, or you could just use it as a trophy, or I don't know, something like that. How did the rabbit brew the potion? Where does it actually carry the potion? Does it make sense? Admittedly, absolutely not, but after all, killer rabbit, did it ever make sense? What do you think? Should they re-implement the killer rabbit, or is it truly too dangerous for survival? If they did implement this thing in survival, what should it drop? Let me know down below. Everything to know, killer bunny. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Everything series. What should the next episode be on? If there's a topic you'd like to see covered next, request it down in the comments or over on the subreddit r/waddles. If you're into strong, dangerous mobs, I recommend the Warden episode next. Like, subscribe, I'll see you tomorrow. This has been me, Waddles. Goodbye, everyone.